Welcome back to the Coach Momentum Podcast with Karen Capello. I want to start with something that may shift how you're thinking about your business right away, especially if your mind has been going to the idea that you need more leads or more people to talk to in order for things to move. Because that's often where the focus goes. It sounds like if I just had more people coming in, more interest, more visibility, this would start to work even better. And it's a very reasonable conclusion to come to. What I've seen, particularly with experienced coaches, is that the number of people you talk to isn't usually the problem. What's actually happening is that there are already enough people in your world, and the conversations you're having with them aren't leading anywhere yet. And that's a very different place to look at your business development from. When you begin to see it that way, the question shifts from how do I get more people to talk with to what's happening in the conversations I'm already having. Most coaches are in conversations all the time, whether they realize it or not. You're connecting with people, you're responding to messages, you're speaking with colleagues, former clients, people in your network. And those conversations are often thoughtful and engaging, and then they end. There's no clear next step, no sense of a decision, no movement forward. And it can feel confusing because nothing went wrong, and yet nothing actually happened either. I remember working with a coach who was having a steady stream of conversations. She was well respected, people enjoyed speaking with her, and she was doing everything you would expect someone at her level to be doing. When we look more closely, what became clear is that her conversations were staying in a place that felt comfortable. They were reflective, they were supportive, they were insightful, and they weren't reaching the point where a decision could be made. There was no moment where someone could say, "Yes, I want to work with you." So when we worked together, we didn't introduce anything that felt like selling. We simply began to look at those moments in the conversation where something was naturally emerging, where there was actually something at stake for the person she was speaking with, where a decision was already there, even if it hadn't been talked about yet. What shifted was subtle, and yet it was significant. She stayed with those moments a little longer. She began to ask about the consequences of not getting help for their challenge. She allowed the conversation to move into a place where something could actually be decided. And from there, things began to change. She didn't suddenly have more people to talk with. The conversation she was having began to move forward. This is something I really want you to take in. You don't need hundreds of new people in order to build your business. What creates momentum is a smaller number of the right conversations that actually turn into contracts. Because the leaders you're here to serve aren't looking for more interaction. They're looking for clarity. They're looking for someone who can understand what's going on and help them move forward. They're looking for results. And that doesn't happen when staying on the surface of conversations. It happens when the conversation reaches the point where something real is being addressed. This is where many coaches naturally pull back because it requires a different kind of presence. It goes beyond curiosity and reflection into leadership. The willingness to talk about what matters. The willingness to ask the hard questions, even when it would be easier to move on or wrap it up. And this is where your business begins to shift. Not when you reach more people, when your conversations become more connected to what's actually at stake, when you're telling leaders things that no one is telling them, when you're asking questions that no one else is asking. So if you've been thinking that what you need is more leads, I want to invite you to look at your current conversations in a different way. Where are they ending too early without talking about what's at stake if the problem isn't addressed? Where are you staying in a place that feels complete when there is actually more available? Where are you sensing that something could move forward, yet you're not stepping into that moment? because these moments are where your business is built. Not in the number of people you reach, in the depth and direction of the conversations you're already having. So, as you move through your week, just consider this. Instead of asking, how do I get more leads? What if you asked, how do I engage differently in the conversations I'm already in? Because that shift on its own can change everything. I'll see you in the next episode. Meantime, wishing you success with ease and joy.